Welcome to Fabulous Women Over 40, hosted by celebrity stylist Kara Allan. Join Kara as she interviews amazing women, sometimes younger and amazing men as well, in their 40s and beyond. Here's Kara with our Fabulous Woman of the Day.
Welcome back to the Fabulous Women Over 40 podcast, the place where reinvention is the dress code and confidence is always in season. I'm Kara Allan, your host, personal stylist to your life, and your go-to guide for turning glow-ups into full-blown transformations. I believe style isn't just what you wear, it's how you show up, it's how you speak your truth, and how boldly you step into the life you know you deserve. Today, we're continuing the conversation with dating coach Flora Ong, and this time we're going deep undercover. We're talking about what it actually looks like to embody secure love, how to stop repeating the same relationship silhouettes in different fabrics, and how to become the woman who no longer chases, she chooses. This episode is about refinement, about nervous system safety, about standards that fit your life now, not the version of you from 10 years ago. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's tailor your love life to the woman you've become. Welcome back, Flora.
Hello, it's good to see you. It's good to talk to you again. I'm excited we get to continue this conversation.
Yes, me too. Because last time was loaded. It was loaded. And it felt like we were a little rushed. So we have a little bit more time today, but we're gonna dive in quick so we can get to the meat and the bones. So in part one, we talked about awareness and patterns. For part two, what feels most important for women to embody once they've had those realizations of the patterns that they've been falling into?
What's most important to embody, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think what everybody wants is a quick pill, like a quick, oh, okay, so once I figure this out, then I don't have to make any effort anymore, and like everything just works, right?
It's true.
But the reality is it's always going to be some level of trial and error, you know? And always, like from an embodiment standpoint, it really is about your nervous system and grounding into your nervous system so that you can do hard things, really, and some of those hard things are seeing a pattern in somebody else, recognizing it because now you're aware, right? You're aware of your own pattern and you can see that like certain patterns that come up in others, and you can recognize like, oh, I think this is going in that direction, like that I don't want it to go in. And this is now where you get to choose, right? This is where you embody. This is real strength. It doesn't feel good. It's messy. It's ugly. It's uncomfortable, right? But you do it anyway because you recognize that you don't want to play this game anymore. You don't want to do that like thing that's not making you feel good. And so that's where the real embodiment comes in, and it's not sexy, by the way.
No, it is not. So how does a woman, say you're in a relationship or dating somebody who starts exhibiting these signs and you're like, oh, I've seen this movie before. So then like, how do you navigate that without taking on the emotional burden of the other person of what they need to work on and staying in your lane and what you need to deal with?
Well, the question always, and what I really kind of try and get my clients to get really good at is, how does this make me feel? How do I feel right now?
Right.
How do I feel overall good, happy, relaxed, chill? I can do my work, I can live my life, or am I living in a state of constant like concern, anxiety, rumination, obsession, thinking about what this person is doing? And does what they're doing warrant how I feel, right? Because if it's your own shit and they're doing everything right, you're going to feel that way anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if, there's a reason, right? If they're not contacting you for days on end between, seeing each other, and that kind of makes you feel anxious, if they're not being completely transparent about who they are, or you have like a lot of questions that you can't get answered. I mean, these things are going to make you feel anxious. It's, and it's not, I think especially when you're anxious, you take on like when you start doing work, you start realizing like everything's your responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm.
or you have a responsibility in the dynamic more than maybe you had realized before, you know? And so as an anxious person, you start to typically be like, oh, this is my job. I have to regulate. I have to, be okay with distance is fine. Like I should be okay with it, and you try and to your point, like you try and take on that, their distance as you try and make it normal, and it's not, if it's not normal for you, it's not normal, you
Yeah.
know? And there is no normal, right?
No.
Also.
Yeah. I think it just, I mean, I think everybody has some work, even though those of us who have done some work, I think when we've gotten to a certain point, then something else will happen where that tests our new level of what work we've done. And
Country.
then you're like, okay, maybe I still have a little bit more work to do. And it's good to be able to be self-aware and recognize that. But two, again, you don't want to take on the burden of somebody else's work that they haven't done, because then you're the one carrying that when it's their junk. So being
Yeah.
aware of that too, and not letting the other person gaslight you into saying, "Oh, it's you're being too much. You're doing this. You're doing that." All of that.
Yeah, and it's hard when you don't know yourself, when you don't know how things make you feel, when you aren't confident and comfortable in who you are. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
can sway you. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
can say, "What's the big deal? It was 4 days. I'm here now. Like, what's the problem? Like, that wasn't a big deal. Like, so what? I was busy working and whatever, you know?" And you could be like, "Oh, I mean, yeah, I guess, right?"
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then go another 4 days and you're like, uncomfortable, worried, concerned, waiting, so, there is no right or wrong. There is no normal,
Yeah.
but you have to know yourself to know what feels good to you and what doesn't.
True. And so, why do you think most women try to intellectualize that away versus this doesn't make me feel right? Like, why is that always our go-to? Maybe because the person is trying to talk you into it too, but then in our own selves, sitting with our own selves with it, why do we always try to rationalize that versus going, that felt like crap, and I'm going to go with how that made me feel, not like how this person is
Mhm.
telling me I should feel about it.
Right. Well, there you just said that nobody should tell you how you can feel, right? That's
Yeah.
number one. But also, I mean, do we have to talk about the patriarchy? We grew up in a patriarchal society where like men, value the thinking brain, and the feeling body has always been kind of dismissed or thought to be, suppressed or thought to be dangerous, because that's the feminine, let's say, right?
Hmm.
And nobody, we haven't valued that. We haven't valued intuition. We valued um, logical, straightforward thinking. The
Hmm.
problem is that life is in the gray, and it's not this black and white linear thing
Hmm.
that, we're led to believe up until we realize, oh, it's not, you know.
Yeah, and I
Wait.
feel like men haven't been given permission either, I think, because that's always been, that's a woman's thought, that's a woman's blah blah blah. And men don't want to be associated with, oh, if I'm a man, I don't want to feel like I'm doing woman things.
Exactly.
So
And
it's
and I'm working with a lot of men now, and all of that is true. They don't really know, or they haven't been allowed to express anything but like anger or sexual desire,
mm,
you know? And, when I say this to men, they're always like, yeah, yeah, that's right. Like, that was the only thing, like, I kind of felt comfortable being, like, if I was ever loud, right? That's the only thing I felt comfortable kind of being outward and loud with. And so it's kind of this, it's like a retraining and a remembering that we have a internal consciousness, right? Like whatever you
mm,
want to call that, you want to call that your soul, you want to call that consciousness. I mean, it's undeniable, right? And
right.
it's so much smarter than our thinking brain could ever be.
That's true. Yeah. So why do familial relationship patterns feel so magnetic even when we're in the midst of it and say something like that happens or worse? Why does that feel magnetic to us even though we know we've been there before and it doesn't feel good and we just keep going down the rabbit hole? Like it's going to be different. Like how do we get out of that loop of how do I, get away from something that feels familiar, and then if something is different, not running away from that, like something that feels more, something that should be more safe for you emotionally, we kind of start going, whoa, that's not right. Versus the one who feels crazy, we're like, oh, that feels familiar. Let me go back down that road because I understand it. How do we get away from that?
We feel that pull because, and this I think really feeds into like the last question we were going over, because that familiarity happened before the age of 3 years old, before our
Mm-hmm.
thinking conscious brain really properly came online. Okay. So when
Right.
they do the attachment test, they do it on 1.5-year olds. Okay.
Mm.
That's how they know their attachment style. They're that young, right? So it's already laid in. And so this really speaks to the feeling body. All of that happens, all of that setup, that conditioning happens in the feeling body. It doesn't really happen in the conscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you feel a magnetic pull to something that feels familiar, even if it's not healthy for you.
Right.
And it becomes like this people, oh, my soulmate, like, twin flame, like it feels cosmic because your
Yeah.
thinking doesn't remember, right? But your
Mm-hmm.
body does.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then we're trying to constantly like fix those relations if they were somehow toxic or negative or bad, um, without even realizing that that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're kind of trying to seek safety in the familiar, even when the familiar was never safe, you know? And how do we get out of it?
Or
I
avoid
mean,
falling into the same trap, basically.
listen, there's a recognition of it, right? Like, first of all, you got to become aware,
Hmm.
which does take both parts of the brain and body, right?
Yeah.
Um, but also, then it becomes that embodiment thing that we were talking about earlier, too. Then it becomes making hard choices. Then it becomes doing things that don't like, that are hard and uncomfortable and difficult to do. But first, you got to like recognize what's happening and see if it is happening. You know what I mean?
Right.
Inquire, like, and I think that's another part of things that we don't address kind of enough, maybe. I don't know. It's like the
Hmm.
communication part of it,
Yeah.
right? Because it's one thing to recognize, and then people who have attachment issues will will set harsh boundaries, with
Hmm.
whatever attachment style you have, right?
Yeah.
Um, and they'll just be like, "Oh, he didn't call me for 4 days. That's it. I will, I will never speak to him again. I recognize this, and I'm running away from it." Right? But that's also not healthy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's hard. Like anybody who's ever had to diet in their life understands how difficult the middle is,
Yeah.
you know? Because like I don't know about you, but when I eat, I like to eat a lot,
Mm.
and having to stop myself in the middle, where I'm just full, it's something I really had to learn to
Yeah.
do, and I still have trouble doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, leave me to my devices. I'm eating a whole box of cereal at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or the
And
whole box
so,
of cookies or whatever.
yeah, So it's the same, like in a lot of senses, it's the same. Trying to find that healthy middle ground in communicating, being okay with things not working out how you want them to, being like, and being able to just like navigate that without making it mean something about you.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember doing some research after, I think we talked a little bit about this, but I remember a therapist telling me after she took my family history and everything, she said, I think you're dealing with something called repetition compulsion. And I was like, what is that? So, and she said it's like when the brain or the body or whichever is trying to heal itself because it's trying to, like the stuff that you said happens before you're three. Um, that it's an unconscious thing. It's not like you constantly want to be, left or dealt crazy relationships. But when I Googled it, it was like, oh, it means like people who like cut themselves or do something weird. I was like, no, that's not doing that. So then I just typed in literally, why do some people choose the same type of relationships? And I got a hit back on something exactly. This psychotherapist who had done some research on it and said that same thing. It's like somebody in your life, the primary caregiver or one who was the most, you know, dominant in your life was somebody who didn't let you speak. They didn't, they didn't nurture you. They were like dismissive, whatever, all those things that we talked about. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, I'd never heard that before. And again, I was like, so now I'm aware of it. What do I do? You know what I mean? So and it's not easy and it doesn't happen overnight. Just because you're aware of it, it's like, oh, like you said, you're either going to go one extreme to the other, like, oh, this looks like this, or this feels like this, and I'm going to not do, this person doesn't call. I'm not talking to him again, instead of talking to the person and saying, hey, what's up? I didn't hear from you for a couple of days. You good? Whatever. And then whatever their answer is how you dictate what, you set a boundary and say, hey, that, okay, I get that, but it makes me feel a certain way when you don't, da 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 da. So I think that's kind of what we need to do, right? It's like set up boundaries with people once we're aware of what's happening and, try to move from there.
I mean, I think what you're saying is like right on target. People are so obsessed with the outcome that they don't allow themselves the process of
Mm-hmm.
becoming the embodied version,
That's true.
because they're like, oh, well, I can never be with somebody like that again. So I'm just going to cut them off, right? Rather than kind of like being vulnerable here, or they're like, or the opposite. They're like, oh, well, I said it. He gave me some sort of answer. I don't know if it was like okay for me or not, but like I said the thing and now I'm just gonna like shut up because like I've done this huge, I've what do you call it? What's it called? A like emotional hangover. You know what I mean? Like I've took a vulnerability hangover, right? Like I've released the thing. It's so hard for me to do. And then I got somewhat of an answer. I don't even know if it's okay or not, but like I'm just gonna take whatever it is because now I just like I can't do this again, And I want this person and I want to have this relationship or what, like whatever the goal is there. And so you just kind of accept it without really considering the whole of everything that's happening. It's scary, right? It's scary to like let go and really be vulnerable and risk getting hurt and all those things.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes, is there a test that comes where it's like God's like, are you still stupid? Let's see if somebody shows up and
The tests are always there and we just refuse to see them, and that is in and of itself a test, right? Like, are you going to accept the first answer you get? Are you going to be too overwhelmed with your own like fears and concerns and wounds that you can't even see that this person was just skirting the issue right in front of your face, or gaslighting you or whatever, And what happens is, because a lot of times for those of us who have like attachment issues, because it's better than what we experience, we don't recognize that it's still the same.
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh, but it's better,
Yeah. Same
he's nice
person,
about it.
different outfit.
Right.
Basically.
Like he's nice about it. He doesn't yell at me when I ask him a question. He answers me, but did you really get an answer?
No.
Right.
it's all like smoke and mirrors.
I mean, like hopefully not always, but
Yeah.
in this case for sure.
So, what does secure love actually feel like in the body?
Calm, boring, uninteresting. you know? No, I mean, I think this is really part of the problem too,
Yeah.
I mean, initially, of course, I think like all love feels exciting and you get your butterflies and it's fun, but it's it doesn't like I can tell you a lot of things it's not, right? It doesn't drain you, it doesn't make you question yourself, it
Hmm.
doesn't make you doubt the connection or the person. Um, it allows your brain to be free enough to pursue your own goals
Right.
and supports that, you know,
Yeah.
without, yeah, you
Yeah.
know. So you're married. Why don't you tell us? How does it feel?
You know, I think we're still in the newlywedish phase. Like the honeymoon is definitely over. There's no veils. The veils have fallen to the floor. But I still think there's places where we're still learning stuff about each other that we didn't necessarily know. I feel like because we both been married. Well, I've been married. He's my third husband, but he's been
Love
married.
life.
I'm his second wife. So, and both of us were married before in our 20s. So neither of us have been married since then. So we've just been in relationships. And I think when you're with people who don't necessarily, I won't say challenge you because it's not a duel, but when you have people who, um, haven't done their work either, and then you're just sort of skating along and the same things keep happening and they don't get treated because somebody doesn't say full stop, this can't keep happening, and it just, or you get out of the relationship and then you're into other things and then there's other people who are still not doing it. We're still attracted to the same type of people. And so when that's happening, you're not growing because there's nobody that's saying, no, we're not doing this anymore. So I've done continually a lot of work, and he's just getting to the point our where because I have done so much work, I'm saying I'm not going to be dealing with this or that. So, and that's harder for him because he don't know how to deal with that. And so he's going to counseling, he's talking to people, he's going to a coach. But I think with most people, not just men, but especially men, they don't necessarily, like you said, want to be vulnerable. They're not going to necessarily say what they feel like their weak points are because they're always be like, you know. And but I've noticed this with my daughter too. It's like if you don't tell people the truth, or at least what's happening, and that what you're doing, nobody can help you because they don't know what's happening, and they can't advise you in a proper way to say, well, this is why your wife had this reaction, or this is why this person had this reaction. You tell the truth, or you withheld the truth. Between being honest and transparent. Honesty is telling it all, whereas transparency is saying, I went here and I did this, but didn't say, or I don't know which one.
Where you went specifically and like what
Somebody else
specific.
has showed up there that shouldn't have been there or whatever. Like you don't tell everything. And so then somebody starts not trusting you because they still feel like something's off because you that this happened and you're not telling it. But the person can feel that energy from you and they are like, oh, I didn't lie. Well, no, but you admitted that happened. You can't do that. So, it's still a work in progress, I feel like. And, once everybody that I've talked to that's been married for longer than 10, 20 years have all said in the beginning, the first couple of years were the hardest because you're bringing two people together, especially if you got married when you were older, and you're just meshing personalities that, especially when you're already who you are at this point, you know what I'm saying? So it just takes some time, and then it's like, can you hang on? Because, so one person's always going to be doing more heavy lifting than the other one if the other one hasn't done their work. So That's kind of where
there's you remind it, like, just kind of brought up in my brain, the power phase, right? And relationship, and that's really where a lot of relationships end. They make it like it's usually like give or take a year in, different for different people, but like usually about a year in. And that's where you start dealing with like the power dynamics of who's going to win, like how are we dealing with conflict, how are we dealing with things that are difficult. And like you said, meshing lives, especially as you get older, is like more and more difficult. And so can you communicate through? Do you have conflict resolution skills? Do you have enough of a foundation that's going to help you trust each other enough to get through together?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's usually, that is the spot where most relationships tend to end, if they end.
Yeah, because then it's just like you just keep doing this, and there's nobody saying, okay. And again, people can try and they can work on it, but if you haven't been doing that as a regular practice and now you're trying, it takes a while. It's not like it's going to be, oh, the next time, yeah, unless somebody's super conscious, and not everyone's that way. So, you're dealing with 50-some-year-old people and you're like, yeah, be different. Like, okay. Yeah.
But I also think that, like the most, not the most, I think like a big part of what is super important is somebody that's willing to see your perspective, willing to work on things, willing to make the effort,
Yeah.
because a lot of people will just get, or just, what do you call it, stubborn
Yeah.
and stuck in their ways, and, they're right, or, and you have to see things their way, or just there's no other way. And they're too kind of stubborn to like learn something new, which to me is so stupid,
That would be my dad. But, and I get, willing is the key. Like somebody has to be willing or there's nothing. Like you can't deal with somebody who's just like, no, this is me, take it or leave it. Well, bye. I'm out of here. But even when you have somebody who's willing, if in the heat of the moment when things happen and they're not willing to stop what they're doing or like try to emotionally regulate themselves or whatever, and they just fall right back into that same pattern, that's where all the damage happens, because then they're just saying things, they're just doing things that are hurtful, and you can't take it back. Once it's out of your face, you can't take it back. And when you're angry and whatever, you're saying things that you mean. You say you didn't, but you did. You said it. You know what I mean? So then there becomes the thing of the fallout of like, you can only say so many things so many times before I don't believe you anymore. You know what I mean? That's a lot.
Yeah. I have to say, like when I was married, that was me. I didn't have a filter. I didn't think I should have a filter. I said some of the I said things that I deeply regret, including like every fight we had was like, well, we should just get divorced then. Fine. We should just get divorced. Like that was my, you know what I mean? Modus operandi back then. But, and today, for whatever relationship I ever have again and ever since, it is one thing that I will never do again, because I saw the like negative impact of it. I saw the poison that it kind of caused, and recognize how important it is to be regulated enough to have a conversation and not just be spewing anger.
Not just be bleh.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a lot of it. I think we're in this age, especially if you look at social media and everything else, is that people think they just have the right to say whatever they want to say. And that's true. You can, but do you want to be right or do you want to be left? And then you keep saying things, and then, you can have your opinions, but I don't need to hear about all of them. And to me, because I grew up with a father who just was that way, just would say whatever he wanted to say, didn't care how it affected anybody, and then be like, don't take it personal. And you're like, how else should I take it? You're attacking me personally. Like, what are you talking about? So I've been very mindful of how I say things and what I say to people, because I know I have the ability to cut you down and then you will never recover. Okay. So if I say something to a certain point, I mean it. And if I've gotten to that point, we're done, because I'm just saying it now because I've said it nice, I've said it mean, I've said it every way in between. I feel like a Dr. Seuss book, and you're still not hearing me. So when it comes out another way, or a lot of the times I say, just in general to friends or anybody else, like, if I said everything that popped into my head, you would hate me. You would hate me. So I learned to shut the hell up. If it's not loving, if it's not truthful, if it's not kind, shut up. You don't have to say everything.
I need to know everything that's on your mind. But, I also want to make a point, like, you just said that, like, you've learned to, like, hold this part back because it's unnecessary, right? And we all have, like, a bunch of thoughts and stuff. And I've learned to, kind of regulate through my anger, my temper that I had at one point.
Yeah.
But what I also recognize is that if anybody brings me to that point today, I don't like that version of myself.
Nope.
I don't want to be that person. I don't want to have to get that low. So if somebody's bringing that out in me, it's this is not the relationship that I need to be. Yeah, And that kind of stuff won't come out until 3 months, 6 months into a relationship, right? Because nobody's, like, we're not, the emotions aren't that deep yet, And so again, that's when you're embodying, that's when it becomes kind of like hard to do the work, right? Like, I always love how people talk about the work, but they don't recognize that it's the word work for a reason, because it's not easy. Like, you have to work at it,
And it is a constant kind of thing as long as you're involved with somebody. I mean, I had it with somebody I thought was kind of a friend recently, and she was saying crazy things. And I was like, at the end, I could have literally just said some things that were insane, and she would have got the point. But I just said, nope, I just cut it, because I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person that proves to you that you're an asshole, basically. So I'm just going to be quiet. And I blocked you. I removed you from all of the things because we didn't need to have any more conversation. It's done. We're done here. Goodbye. That's it.
I mean, it's not, a lot of times it's not worth your, like, coming out of your own skin, and again, if somebody's making you feel that you need to, that you want to, then it's like, it's not the right match for you.
End of the road.
Yeah.
End of the road. So speaking of all of that, now how do you suggest that people regulate their nervous system? Say if they're about to go on a date or on a date and then somebody says something crazy to them, or something is triggering or whatever. How do you suggest people kind of regulate themselves, or should they just continue to say, you know what? So glad we had this time. Just go.
People. Well, first of all, I think you have to have a practice of regulation, because I don't think it happens in one shot. You know what
True.
I mean?
Yes.
So I think it's super important to meditate, and, like, I do think exercise, like, I want to say exercise because I think it's important. However, some people use exercise as like an escape route, rather than like a regulation tool,
Right. Yeah.
And so I think it just kind of depends how you're using that. But I think meditation is really important, breathing, breath work, some version of that. And I think you really do need to have a regular practice of sitting with yourself. And, like, again, so that you can understand what you feel, so that you can see, hear, and know the sensations in your body and what they mean to you, and what, what's important in that messaging, whatever that is, And then before a date, take 5 minutes of, like, deep breathing in the car before you go in, whatever it is. Decide how you want to feel, in the experience. Decide, like, what is not yours, what you want to, like, what energy isn't yours, what you want to hold on to. And, kind of go into the date visualizing the experience before it happens, so that you can create it rather than just be a victim of it.
Yeah. That's good. And tapping too, I think is a good practice
Tapping
too.
is great. Yeah. I mean, there's tons of somatic practices that people can do. Um, as long as you have something that you're doing, because I think most of us go through this world and we're just like, do, like wake up, like,
Yeah.
whatever, doing the like routine of life and what we're used to doing, and not taking the time to be with self. And as these words come out of my mouth, I want you to know I'm from New York. I have like a Soviet Ukrainian background. I'm like, this sounds so woo woo. I sound I'm some sort of like like California hippie. I'm not. Okay.
No, it sounds normal to me because I've done the work, so I get it. To somebody else, maybe not.
Yeah. And I think it's important to say that because there was a time in my life where everything was black and white, where I didn't believe in any of this. And somebody would just say, like, oh, say affirmations, like, I am wealthy. I'm like, I am not wealthy. I'm not going to say I'm wealthy. It makes no sense. What are you fucking talking about? I've come a very long way, but, like, it is, I think it's important for people who listen to stuff like this and they're like, oh, shut up, that like there's a reason we get here,
Yeah.
there's a reason we end up here.
Well, and the Bible that says death and life is in the power of the tongue. Like, what you say is either building life, creating life for yourself, or destroying it or destroying somebody else. The things that we say, the curses we say it to people, everything creates our environment. So there's truth in all of that, and
There is,
whether you believe it or not, you're doing it every day.
yeah.
So,
And I think it's important to understand too is like, because language is the way that we like communicate with each other.
mhm.
Your nervous system also hears and understands language before your brain does.
Mm-mm.
So when you tell yourself, I'm a piece of shit, or like, I hate myself, or I'm so stupid, these
Right.
things that we hate ourselves because you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. I'm such an idiot. And you don't like think anything of it because you don't mean it, but your body still held that, your
Yeah.
body took that hit, right?
Right.
It goes into feeds that negative belief system that maybe you grew up with. And, there's like science to it too. That's why
Yeah.
I,
It's
I
not
love this.
all woo woo. So we talked a little bit about the feminine energy, and that's people talk about it and they talk about it, but what does it really mean in dating without the stereotypes? Because we all have feminine and masculine energy. That's just science too. Like, you can't deny that. So like when men will say, that's women's stuff, or like they're denying their own part of themselves that needs to be able to express things and not just keep them in. And I get that they don't want to sound like a woman because they're not, but women are technically always confused or always accused of being the complainers, and we're gossipy and we're this and we're that. But men are just as bad. I've seen some men that are worse gossipers, and the things that they say about women are worse than what women say about men. So it's just like, who's the feminine energy here, sir? But like, how do we navigate that? And how do they give men permission to be able to express themselves in an albeit masculine way without the aggression, but without the shame of being able to say how they feel too? I think that's a thing that needs to be addressed.
I think the sexiest thing is a man who can express himself and cry
Yeah.
with while also being like in his masculine.
Mm-hmm.
There is literally nothing sexier than a man who can like hold the frame of masculinity, but then also fully and completely express himself.
Yeah.
Um, and how do we do that?
Yeah.
I,
How is the question?
As a man or as a woman? What side are we on? First of all, as women, we have to stop you know, the problem with the patriarchal conditioning and upbringing is that we're all a victim to it, right?
Yeah.
So we've also, we'll see a man cry and we'll also say, stop it, be a man, or we'll say this to our sons, or we'll say this, or you'll go back to the girl chat, what do you call it, the group chat, and you're like, oh my God, but he cried. Ugh, how gross, um, and so all that said, nothing is, it's not, you can do anything almost, like within human reason, right? You can pretty much say anything, do anything. And if it's authentic to you, and if it's not imposing on somebody else, then it stays masculine, if you can understand what I'm saying, or it stays feminine, right?
Yeah.
It is not, I always say to my clients, like, oh, but if I text him twice, like, it's needy. That, they'll be like, oh, but then I look pathetic. And I'm like, you look pathetic, not because you text him 2 times. You look pathetic because when he responds to you, you don't let it go. You look pathetic because you hold the fact that you texted him twice, and you gaslight yourself that there's something wrong with it. Then your energy's all weird, and you don't know how to be around him anymore, right? You can't relax and be comfortable, right?
Yeah.
But texting somebody twice doesn't make you needy or less feminine or any of it, right?
Yeah.
Because the feminine does what she wants, right? Like, she has a voice. She's not sitting on a log waiting for somebody to come and pick her up. You know what I mean? Like,
Let us hope not.
Yeah. So this idea that feminine means that, like, you don't do anything and masculine means you do everything is completely like an exploited, minimalistic, basic, explanation for what these things are. It's not that. It's like the memified version of masculine, feminine.
Yeah. When the truth is there's a natural ebb and flow, call and response kind of thing. It's supposed to be anyway. So, and then one thing I really wanted to ask you too was like, so I know when I was dealing with the avoidant person, I kept feeling like, I needed to try harder. Maybe it was just something that I wasn't doing or wasn't saying. Like, why is that a trap? That is a complete trap and the wrong strategy for us to try to do, because if the person isn't responding and they're, doing their little weird dance, like, what do you do in that scenario? When do you know when is it time to just pull back or cut it all off or whatever? I guess it's an individual thing, but at the same time, it's like, why do we always feel like we have to keep trying to like prove something? I don't know what it is.
Listen, I think one thing that has to be kind of more out there is that, yes, very much so, the attachment styles are real. They exist. It's like a very real, true thing. And I know that because, like, I'm primarily anxious, and I know I'm anxious. There's no 3 ways about it. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but, and I obviously know plenty of avoidance, but, it is normal when something pulls away to something you like and want, pulls away from you, to try and chase it. Like when the sun is in a certain direction, plants lean in that direction, right? Because they're looking for that nourishment, So it's normal, it's natural, and it's human, right? And it's okay also to do that until it starts to be a problem for you, And I think that we're so seeking that, like, good feeling that we felt in the beginning times with, like, this avoidant person, that comfort and that familiarity, that we we're willing to feel like shit a little bit in order to just get more of that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And when you start feeling like shit, it's time to start recognizing like, oh, I don't like this,
Mm.
you know? This
Yeah.
doesn't feel good. I don't
No.
want to feel like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not the feeling of familiarity I'm looking for. I'm looking for something like a healthy
Yeah.
familiarity, or
True.
yeah. So I think that that's where, I have plenty of secure clients that have come to me after an avoidant relationship that feel anxious, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
But they're primarily secure,
Yeah.
And so, of course, the avoidance is going to bring up anxiety. Of course, it's going to make you feel like, you're doing something wrong. But it's important. That's why it's important to talk about this stuff and recognize it and be aware that that you need to kind of create a stopping point for yourself.
Yeah. Because I think the one thing that I noted that before I started, I started following you and seeing other people that were talking about avoidance stuff way before that, because this was, in the last few years. Well, it'd been going on for longer than that. But at this point where it was starting to feel like a game, like it's like if we'd get to a certain point and then he would start doing the moonwalk. And then it was like, I'm sort of like tiptoeing kind of forward, and then it's like he's just still doing this, and then at some point the contact gets broken, and then say we don't talk for, I don't know, a couple of months or maybe even longer than that, and then it's like it's a reset. Now it's normal. Like he needed to retreat to like reset his own self, and then it's like kept telling him, this feels like Groundhog Day. Like we keep having the same conversations, the same thing over and over and over again, and nothing's changing. And this is like aggravating to me. It makes no sense, because it's like, and then he was started drinking a lot too. So then his excuse, during the drinking, he would say, I'm not that drunk. I'll remember what's happening. And then after that, when I bring up something later, he'd be like, I don't know, I was drinking. Like, you know what? I'm done. This is stupid. Like, what are we doing here?
Either way, I love that.
It's like, what is happening? So, it ended up, and he was also, and I remember hearing him talk about even friends. So, like, if a friend stopped, whatever, for whatever reason, they fell off, and then the friend would reach out, and it'd been more than like a couple months or maybe even a year, then he wouldn't call him back, because he'd be like, why are you calling me now? What is wrong with you, buddy? Like, he would literally feel rejected, and then feel like, like he was strong and doing something by rejecting them back, even though they had no idea what was happening. So,
Yeah.
for advice for people who get caught in those kind of traps, it's like, I feel like sometimes you just got to know when to hit the exit, the escape hatch, and just get out, because for your own mental health, you're just going to be running around circles of dealing with somebody who just won't get themselves together. You know what I mean?
I think and that's why I think it's so important to have some sort of self practice of like, coming back to yourself, questioning, how does this feel? How do I feel
Mhm.
over, like, and recognizing how you do or don't want to feel, and how this relationship is either bringing you up and becoming supportive to your goals in your life and the bigger, more important things, right?
Yeah.
Rather than being the only thing that your life becomes focused on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it becomes a big
Because
thing.
when you're in a toxic dynamic, it's like impossible not to be thinking about it, because you're in survival.
Yeah, and you just keep going around that rabbit hole. So, but yeah, I mean, once I was done with that, I was done with it. I was like, yeah, I'm good. We're not going back to that ever again.
Yeah, but it's very confusing. I think the other thing that people need to remember too is nobody's going to change for you,
As
you
they
know?
shouldn't either. They should change for themselves.
Exactly, right? And so and I think also something I really had to learn was that people are really, really different from a very deep and inherent place,
Mm,
And so you're not going to change that programming, you know, like if I'm in love, if I love someone, I will do anything for them. Do you know what I mean? Like I will, and you know, wrong or right, whatever, but like I have a certain way that I will I will make the effort. I will like try and work things out. I will go out of my way. You know what I mean? There's like certain, but not everybody is like that, you know? And it's so hard to, when you, a lot of, you know, because I'm in conversation with a lot of people in the anxious and avoidant dynamic, and it's so hard for one to really deeply, inherently, viscerally understand the other, you know? Yeah. And so when you recognize that people are different in a way that you'll never understand, you can stop trying to understand them. You know, and just be like, I don't feel good. You know, like
I just don't like this.
Yeah.
When you feel like you're doing more work than the other person is too, then you need to reevaluate that, because that's how it started to feel like. He just shows up because he's bored, and I'm like trying to push the relationship forward, and it was like nothing was happening. It wasn't going anywhere. So it was just like, this is a waste of my life. I need to go. So, well, you know, I could talk to you about this for hours. We might need to have a part 3 at some point. So, yes. And so, do you have anything coming up that we can support you on? Any a new program or something happening?
I don't know if you know when this is going to post, but you know, I'll say it here and you can add or not. On between February 4th and February 6th, I'm doing a challenge called Relearn to Love, and you know, we'll be talking about all of this stuff, and we'll be doing some subconscious reprogramming, and we'll be doing some nervous system regulation. And so I'm super excited, you know, to have people join. In my links on Instagram, you can buy tickets there. So yeah, that's the big thing. Relearn a lot, February 4th through 6th.
And I'll get those links for you. I'll post it in the post, like on YouTube, on Spotify, so people can join from there. And then so Instagram, and you're on TikTok as well. Although I don't know how long any of us are going to be on TikTok after everything that's happened now. It's a little crazy.
Yeah. So yes, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, Redo Love. Please support me on YouTube. It's like exciting. I'm growing pretty decently, but you know, always use the extra eyes and ears.
Yes. Perfect. So we will follow you there. And thanks for joining us once again. It's always a very intellectually and emotionally satisfying conversation to have with you, to learn about how to, you know, be aware of ourselves and to grow, because, you know, if you're not growing, you're dying. That's how I feel. You're like the plant in the corner that's just turning brown.
So let me show you my plants.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Flora. I'm so excited about with this message getting out, so people can learn how to redo their love.
Thank you, Cara. It's such a pleasure, and I look forward to chatting anytime.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. Like and subscribe so you can hear more fabulous conversations like this with Flora, and we will see you on the next one. Ciao.
Thank you for joining us today. Please subscribe so you won't miss our next conscious conversation with Cara and her fabulous guests. Follow Cara on social, on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Clubhouse, at Cara Allan, and connect with her on her website at caraallan.com. Also, leave a review if you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks again, and see you next time.